Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I've got a new company to talk about today, and the reason I wanted to talk about Corp is because they have a CRD discovery that is in the early stages, but looking pretty impressive. And we got their CEO, Nick Rodway, on the line today. Nick, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, it's great meeting you, Alan, and I'm happy to be on.
Well, what caught I've been following your project because I'm a big fan of CRD Systems. Started covering Arizona Arizona mining when they had their big CRD discovery, and I know that these things can be company makers. I'm watching Western Alaska and the success that they're having, and I-80 Gold down in Nevada is having some great success. And these grades you came out with 159 grams of silver, 16.4% lead zinc combined, and some sniffs of copper as well, which is part of a 2.4 kilometer trend, got my attention, and I thought we could talk about that news, Nick.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm like I said, very familiar with all of the above, and also an investor in two of the three entities that you just spoke about. Arizona Mining was a little bit before my involvement on the on the investment side of things. I was more just a boots on the ground geologist when Arizona Mining, and I believe it was called Wildcat Exploration, I think before that company had their big success. But I think the unique thing about the results that we have there, and the unique thing about the story just in general, is that our story is a brand new one, right? There is no historical mining done on the project. There are no drill holes on the project besides the ones that we've done, and we've only drilled now, I think, 7,000 meters to date on the whole project, right? We got 1,200 or 1,400 square kilometers of land. And another cool thing that we have is a copper credit on our CRD. So in North America, separating North America from, say, Central America, Mexico, generally there's not usually a copper credit in with these carbonate replacement style systems. But if you head down to, say, Chihuahua, Mexico, or in what they call the Central Mexican CRD belt, there's a lot of skarn CRD world-class deposits that are greater than 45 million tons, and they do have copper credits as well. So I think what we're looking at is something very unique for Canada, if not even North America, with regards to the carbonate replacement side of things. And we're checking all the boxes very early on here. We know there's an intrusion. We've hit it with the drill bit. We know that there's carbonate replacement going on. We know that there's varying types of skarn, endoskarn, exoskarn, and we also know that it exists. You can touch it, and now you can drill it, and also it's a real thing that's come true. So that's why we're so excited.
So this is a real grassroots project, and why? Maybe tell folks why nobody ever set foot on this.
Well, I mean, we'll go back, I guess, to around 2016, and I first started working in Vancouver, then on the more investment side versus doing fly in, fly out type jobs, prospecting and whatnot. There was a company in town here that funded the initial exploration. We were looking for battery metals, and it didn't really matter where. It was just I was looking for areas that could be of interest, and areas that could be interest of big ideas for copper and cobalt was the main two elements. So I came upon some previous mineral files, which are probably about 15 kilometers away from where we're drilling as we speak. And it had some old thesis, UBC thesis there that said that there was some cobalt in it and some good copper. So I went up there and did some ground truthing, and then I started running into a very white rock, which was limestone marble, which has big blobs of black acidic sulfide. Now we know zinc, silver, copper, lead bearing. So at the time, I wasn't really well versed with carbonate replacement style systems. And the acronym CRD can be mixed up in different ways, because anytime you have an acid So an ore fluid in connection with a calcium rich unit, you get replacement. So lots of the different deposit types can have carbonate replacement, but what we're looking at is a CRD system, part of a larger porphyry system. So you have a high grade, low tonnage scenario on your CRD side. And then if you're lucky enough to have a mineralized porphyry, then you're going to get mine life. So it's really one of the best things you can look for. And again, you wouldn't be up there looking if it was a small, potato patch type system. Like, we're looking for something big, and we're proving it up quick.
So why don't you give our audience a little bit of an understanding about these CRD systems? I kind of envision them when I look at the models. It reminds me of those ant the colonies when you put cement down them, and what it looks like. You've got sort of an elevator, and then floors, and more elevators, and more floors, and but they can be very big and powerful.
Yeah, well, I actually recently had someone mention to me about there's YouTube videos of where people pour liquid aluminum down into anthills, and it kind of forms a network. It's almost like an upside down root system of a tree stemming up, and they're quite unique, and they can be, they're continuous for the most part, and they can anastomose, and they can leave their because they're replacing carbonate. So if it's a powerful system, you can get these just coming up in their own way, just like an animal takes the easiest way through the woods, right? So they're not, you definitely need to know what you're doing when you're going after these things, because they're not easy exploration targets. But best way to explain it to people, most people know what the Golden Triangle area is in BC, and most people know that there's a lot of what I call Hollywood deposits down there, so really good deposits. And the only difference in what they have versus what we have is that we have a lot of carbonate surrounding our intrusion. So in order to get a carbonate replacement style system, in order to get this anthill of different channels, you need to have a replaceable unit, and you got to have a lot of heat as well. And the more pulses you get, the longer lived your system, the more metals you get, and then you end up with grades such as what we put out 2 days or yesterday in our news. And again, the headliner was our longest intercept to date, we'll call it, drill core length. But there's a lot of high grade intercepts just in that. That's only 100-meter area too. So there's only so much you can do from each drill pad, but we try to place our drill pads in areas where we can reach 5 or 6 ideas versus just putting it on top of one thing and then hoping for the best. And then on top of that, we're doing step outs, if you want to call it step outs, but we're going at targets that are kilometers in distance apart, so we can quickly prove to people the scale. That's the goal.
And so what you were describing there is the right kind of rocks that allow those carbonates to make their way into and start spreading around it.
Yeah, it's all about the permeability and porosity of your carbonate units. You got to be able to pass fluids through it, and you want to be able to do it with the highest heat you can. We're talking, these things are over 250 degrees Celsius, a lot hotter than should say your Mississippi Valley types or your Irish type deposits. And of course they are intrusion related. And another good box to check is, if you're getting over 400 grams per ton silver in either grab samples or in drilling, which again, we've checked those boxes as well.
So targeting, are you seeing the right kind of rocks at surface, and then then you do surface sampling, you get some kicks? Is geophysics helpful?
So we started off, I like to take what I call prospector's approach. So we started off just doing surface sampling, and you're only sampling areas that you see are massive metal in the ground. And I think, to date, we're up around 800 samples in total. I think around 300 of them are considered massive sulfide skarn or carbonate replacement. And then what you can do is you can put these on a map using a GIS system, and you can create like a heat map of geochem. So and then we know from looking at the geochem if we're closer to the intrusion or further away, because certain minerals precipitate at certain temperatures, and certain ones will be further away and will cool slower. So silver is generally your further distal area on one of these systems, and then your closest area would be more of your molybdenum and copper rich. So mainly we're using old methods here to do this just because we can. You know, if you can see it and it's tangible, then you got enough reason then to validate drilling it. But we did do what's called a V10 survey, so versatile time domain electromagnetic survey. We did that in 2020. So that did, obviously light up in areas, but until you drill it, until you can have context, it's just a color on a map. Versus if I grab the sample and I can touch it and I know it runs, that's no longer a color anymore. That actually means something to me. So once you put those layers together, yes, they match up, but so far to date, we've been mainly just using your old school method, prospector approach, drill what you see and hope for the best, and it's been working out.
Well, walking around and looking down has resulted in a lot of mines being found in the past. So I like that old-fashioned geology way of doing things. You mentioned something there about what you were describing as zonation of grade from distal and as you get closer to the heat engine. And where has your drilling been sort of focused? Are you in the distal area, or are you vectoring into where the heat source could be?
So, I mean, up until this year, it's been really hard to actually answer that question for sure. But, I would say our Pete's pad in for instance, that we put the news out on recently, I would say that's getting towards the end, closer to the end of more distal from the source. And again, you and I can stand there at Pete's and you can just see the mineralization for 2.4 kilometers coming out of because it's white rock with black, massive sulfide coming out. So you can actually see it. So we're at one of what we call a spoke. So we're closer to like the tire part on the spoke for at Pete's, for instance. But last year, you got center. It. Yeah, you got it. And then we did drill some deeper holes last year down to about 480 meters. And that was at what we call a sulfide city area. So that's where the intrusion is exposed at surface. Still lots of limestone there, but we drilled down through that intrusion. And at around 350 meters depth, we started getting into the phyllic alteration zone, which is kind of like your middle zone of your porphyry. So it checks the box that there is a porphyry there because we are in the intrusion. There is a lot of alteration. There's a ton of sulfur, very heavy pyrite and molybdenite as well. So the question is, if we go another 100 meters, 200 meters, will we start getting into the chalcopyrite, which is our copper-bearing mineral? And that's what will really put this thing over the top, is if we start doing some deep holes and start finding appreciable amounts of copper.
Okay, and so that between the distal and the center of your tire, if you will, you can have a big network of that ant farm, if you will, or ant hill.
Yeah, you certainly can. And you'll see zinc is definitely one of the, silver and zinc are two kind of primaries from what I can see on the geochem sheet. So in between Pete's and Sulfide City, let's say that's about 1.5 kilometers distance. And that, again, that's just one spoke of maybe 200 or more. But in between there, you're getting more sphalerite, which is our zinc-bearing mineral. And then, again, you're getting copper. Copper averages around 0.3 everywhere. So the copper is there and it's coming from somewhere. So that leads us to believe that there could be some good copper in this porphyry.
And that's less mobile.
That's correct, and it cools at a lower or higher temperature. Sorry, yeah.
So distal, you're getting continuous mineralization of copper, and you're still trying to vector into where that could all be coming from.
That's correct. Yeah, and I mean, copper hasn't been our number one precursor here for anything. Silver is definitely shows on the map in your distal areas, because we get over 1 kilogram per ton. We've gotten 2 kilograms per ton silver in some areas, and your textures change as well as you step out. And there's some things that I've found in outcrops so far that run over 1,000 grams silver that we haven't seen anything like that in the drill bit. yet. And then there's stuff that I've seen in the drill bit that I've never seen at surface. So the variations and textures is crazy, and the complexity, structural complexity, and the geology there is, it is very complex. But that, again, that's another box to check. It makes my job harder for sure, but complexity is key, because it does mean that there was more than one pulse, there was more than one phase of deformation, and that usually brings your metal budget up.
Perfect. So long-lived, powerful system there is
I'm
what you're saying.
not sure if you've seen, I know some companies are putting out pictures of what they call BBQ Rock. So it's you use a UV light to shine on basically it's spent ore fluid or manganese that has been left behind in areas where there's no mineralization. But it's a good vector. Say you're within 50 or 100 meters of the mineralization. So we have that in drill core, but we also, we've kind of done it backwards, because we hit the massive sulfide, and then we kind of get that fugitive, they call it fugitive calcite, the pink red stuff. We get that intermingled with our massive sulfide, and then we also get it further down hole. So that stuff's everywhere, in our drill.
But that's a vectoring tool. In your case, you've got it. You've hit the mineralization, so that's a more important vectoring tool.
You got it. We're kind of doing it a bit backwards. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, that's you're getting some pretty nice and sweet mineralization there over a very large area. Your anthill can be pretty big.
It definitely can, and it's not something we're going to solve all the, it's not going to be solved tomorrow. We're not going to know everything that the property has this year. It's going to take, it's a multi-year expedition here, and we're going to be finding new things all the time. But the main point is that it's there and it's producing great. So.
And what is your accessibility? Is it how does your season look there, Nick?
So we start as early as May, and then we can go into October, November if we can. And again, that all is capital. It depends on capital as well. This year was not the easiest year to raise capital, and the way I'm looking at it right now, it might not be. It might not be easy in the next few months either, right? But everything is kind of based on that. But we're in a hotel. It's a hotel job out of Allan, British Columbia. So you and I can leave Vancouver at 9 a.m. in the morning, and we'll be at site at lunchtime. So it's very, very quick to get up there. A paved road that goes down from Whitehorse. And then we have Allan Lake, which is, it's over 100 miles long in length. And that lake goes right to paved road down to our project. So we bring all of our gear in on a barge, and then we do have heli support for doing quick crew changes for our day.
Everything is not dependent on helicopters.
It's not dependent on helicopter. In an ideal scenario, once, again, money dependent, capital dependent, you make a camp down there, and then you could have a crew boat just running your crews back and forth twice daily with, your food and your fuel. And then again, you're going to want to have a helicopter on support anyway for safety reasons, no matter what. But yeah, it's pretty rare. It's one of the most successful projects I've worked on. Most of my experience is actually in Nunavut in the high Arctic. That's where I've spent 6 years doing exploration. So that would be considered pretty remote to me. But this is it's pretty nice to be able to come back to a hotel every night, and you got full meals, 3 meals a day, and it's pretty comfy for sure. And the weather, it gets really warm up there, of course, so it's really nice.
I have some family history in that area. My aunt has lived there for 40 years or so.
Really?
Yeah, she periodically has worked in a lot of exploration camps as a cook and a first aid person. And my family, my grandfather had staked some claims up there many years ago.
Okay, was that placer gold claims maybe? Because that's
I
generally
I was so young when he did that. I can't remember what he was looking for, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, well, I mean, that area, was founded by prospectors on the way to the Klondike Gold Rush, and it dates back to the late 1800s, 1890s. First people kind of went by and made a discovery in a place called Pine Creek, so that's just behind Allan to the east. And they've been placer mining for gold there for over 100 years now. So
wow. Well, how is the cash position, Nick?
So at the end, we just put our financials out, I think 3 days ago, maybe Friday of last week. And we'll finish up this year with around 1.2 million left in the bank. So we're in a healthy position. We always like to over budget as much as we possibly can. So we're gonna pick away at some, probably might do another geophysical survey here and before the winter comes in. We'll probably clue up drilling at the end of this month, and we'll be at the Beaver Creek conference actually coming up here in the middle of September. So we're excited to get down there, and we're already budgeting actually for next year. So we're going to be back, and we're going to be going aggressive again.
Well, you mentioned something a little while ago there, Nick, about the financing prospects, and you don't have as many gray hairs as I do. And when you're going through a tough situation, a lot of times people think, well, this is never going to end. But the reality is that things can change on a dime in this business. And I think there's plenty of indicators out there that that could be very soon for the price of gold. And in my experience, when people in the industry least expect it, is usually when that turnaround happens. We've got a nice market in gold today. It's up $20. There's these big meetings of the BRICS nations that I think that they want to make gold a part of their efforts. So, where gold goes, often juniors go, and finding a good CRD project is not easy, but it certainly sounds like you guys have one there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely doesn't do justice unless you've stepped on the ground, but it doesn't take long to go there, and you can see the scale just from standing at one spot, and you can see the mineralization, and it's quite fantastic, and it's an amazing project to be working on. So I couldn't be happier. And on the macro side of things, yeah, it could change any day. I mean, there's a number of things that are happening now at the one time that have never, from my understanding, haven't happened before in past. So if history repeats itself on 3 of the 5 things, and metals do increase, then these extra 2 things could really slingshot us, like you said, almost overnight. So excited to see that.
Absolutely. It could change. And you're in a very small group of companies that have these, serious CRD projects, Nick. It's
Yep.
You're in a bit of a unique position there, my friend.
For sure. It's not easy. It hasn't been easy even from the start, but it's been exciting, and I enjoy doing it. And that's just like what you're doing, right? You enjoy doing it, so time goes by quick, and it's fun. So we're gonna obviously continue on, and we just can't. I can't wait. We're gonna be demobbing now in another week, and I can't wait to start mobbing again. Right away. So.
I was going to ask you, Nick. You said that it really is enlightening when you can get on the property and see it. Is that something you can capture in a video as well to, really, I love using these new tools, and that's maybe a way you can bridge that gap of, instead of trying to get all your investors up there, you can push the button on a video camera and they can see what you're talking about.
Yeah, we've done some drone work up there, and we've had some like voluntary visits from some camera crews and whatnot, just interested in the project. So there is some footage. Our website has some drone imagery there on the front page, but in the next, I'd say month or so, we're going to have some really more in-depth footage that was taken a couple of weeks ago, actually, when I visited the project. So we'll have lots of eye-opening pictures, and people will be able to, if they were any closer, they'd actually be there. So
that sounds great, Nick. Well, congratulations on the success you're having, and I think you've got the makings of a lot more success. And I'm really happy to have had this conversation today, Nick.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to close it off, and we can have a chat at the other end.
Perfect.
So there you go, folks. I always pay attention to interesting drill results from a CRD because I saw what happened with Arizona Mining when they went from a 50-cent stock that I talked about on my show to a couple $billion takeover. I've also been watching very closely a company called Western Alaska Mining, where they've had a lot of good success. And I-80 Gold is having a lot of good success with the CRD. And this core, they look like they've got an up and coming new discovery and very modest valuation. And I think you want to do your homework on it. Check out their website, check out their presentations, check out that drone work that Nick was talking about. And I think you'll see why I got excited about what I'm seeing out of this company. And you will as well. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.